Hello and welcome back to Elder Insights, a gentle place where we slow down, breathe deeply, and remember how to care for ourselves too. There was a time, not long ago, when I realized I had forgotten what quiet felt like. Not silence exactly, but that deep kind of quiet that comes from within. My days had become a blur of doing, for others, for the house, for everything but me. Then one morning, I gave myself just 15 minutes. No chores, no screens, no pressure. Just a small space to be. And something shifted. I didn't expect much. But in those few minutes, I began to feel different. More grounded, more present. Like I had pressed a reset button I didn't know I needed. And that's what this video is about. What can happen, not in an hour, not in a whole new routine, but in just 15 minutes a day. The peace it brings, the parts of you it gently wakes up again. If you're someone who's been moving through life on autopilot, feeling a bit lost in the busyness, go ahead and like or share this video. It helps us continue making thoughtful, nourishing content just for you. And don't forget to subscribe. Comment yes if you've tried this, or maybe if you're just starting to think about it. Your presence here truly matters. Now, let's begin with the very first shift, the moment I paused, and everything began to feel a little more like home again. I think it was a Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. I honestly don't remember exactly what I was doing that morning, but I know I didn't feel like rushing. I had finished breakfast and was about to start the laundry. That much I'm sure of. But instead of standing up right away, I just stayed in my seat. It wasn't something I planned. I wasn't tired in the usual sense. I just felt like I needed a moment to breathe. Not deeply, just normally, without thinking about what came next. That's when I remembered what Helen told me the week before. Or was it 2 weeks? We were at the pharmacy and she said, "You ever notice we only stop moving when we're too worn out to keep going?" I had laughed, but now, sitting there, her words felt oddly true. So I stayed put, just for a little while. No phone, no book, just me and the silence. And if I'm being honest, I felt a bit strange, like I was breaking some rule I didn't know I'd agreed to. A few minutes later, the phone rang. It was my daughter. "What are you doing, Mom?" she asked. I paused. I almost said laundry, but instead I said, "I'm sitting for 15 minutes, doing nothing." There was a beat of silence. Then she laughed. "Well, that's new." We chatted about nothing in particular, something about the neighbor's dog, I think. And when we hung up, I didn't move right away. I just sat there, still. And for once, it didn't feel wrong. It wasn't a grand moment. I'm not even sure how long I sat, really. But it felt like I had stepped outside of time for a bit. And in that small pause, something softened. Just enough for me to say, maybe this is allowed. Maybe I'm allowed. And next morning, I remembered that feeling. Not clearly, just a trace of it, like the scent of something that used to bring comfort. So I sat again, just 15 minutes. No reason other than it felt okay the day before. I didn't plan for it to become a habit. I've never been great at routines, even when I was younger. But something about those quiet few minutes made the rest of the day feel more manageable. By the third or fourth day, I started preparing for it without thinking. I'd warm the tea, pick the same cup. I even moved the armchair just slightly to catch more light, though I don't remember deciding to. It just happened, bit by bit. That's when June, my neighbor, knocked on the door to return a book. She peeked into the living room and smiled. "Looks peaceful in here," she said. I laughed. It's my new thing, 15 minutes of absolutely nothing. She raised an eyebrow. What do you even do for that long? Sometimes tea, sometimes staring into space, occasionally a thought or two. That's about it, she chuckled. I should try that, I told her. Start tomorrow. You don't need a reason. After she left, I sat back down and realized, without meaning to, I'd made a space for myself. It wasn't about fixing anything, or even resting, really. It was about showing up for no one but me. Some mornings, I stretched a little. Others, I wrote a single sentence in a notebook I found in the drawer. Nothing deep, just a thought, like, today feels quieter. Over time, the ritual stopped feeling like an experiment. It became more like an old friend. Reliable, simple, not demanding anything from me. I didn't tell many people, not because I was hiding it, but because it felt too quiet to explain. And yet, that gentle space, those 15 minutes, started to hold something. Something that felt like steadiness. Something that felt like me. A few days later, I ran into Carol at the grocery store. She's one of those people who always looks like she has somewhere to be, even in the cereal aisle. She asked how I'd been, and before I could stop myself, I said, I've been doing nothing. She blinked. Nothing? I laughed. Well, 15 minutes a day of it. I just sit. That's it. She tilted her head, curious. Doesn't it feel pointless? I almost said yes, but then I thought about it, and I said, honestly, no. It feels like breathing. That answer surprised even me, because the truth is, I've spent most of my life doing. Even rest had a purpose, recovering so I could get back to work. But this was different. This was letting go, just for a little while. At first, I thought I needed to fill the time, read, stretch, write. But one morning, I forgot to bring anything with me. I sat there, empty-handed, and something strange happened. I didn't feel bored or lazy. I felt relieved. Relieved not to be responsible for anything in that moment. Not for answering a message, folding a blanket, even forming a thought. It felt like dropping a heavy bag I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Helen called me later that day. I told her what happened. She said, "Sounds like you're finally giving yourself a break from yourself." And I smiled, because she was right. It turns out doing nothing isn't nothing at all. It's space. It's release. It's a soft place to land when the rest of the world feels loud and fast. 15 minutes. No effort. No outcome. And somehow that became one of the kindest things I could give myself. After a while, something gentle began to shift. Not all at once. Not loudly. But I started noticing little things again. Things I thought had quietly slipped out of my days. One afternoon, I found myself humming while rinsing a teacup. I don't remember the tune. Might have been something from the radio years ago. But it was there, and it felt warm. Another day, I opened the drawer in the hallway and saw my old sketchbook. I used to doodle in the evenings, not to create anything important, just shapes and flowers, little things. I hadn't touched it in years, but without really thinking, I took it out and made a few pencil lines. Nothing fancy, nothing worth showing anyone, but it felt familiar in the best way. Even watering the plants started to feel different. I wasn't rushing through it. I was paying attention. The lavender by the windowsill had a new sprout. I almost missed it, but that morning I saw it, and I smiled. I told June about it when she dropped off some muffins. "I think I'm noticing things more lately," I said. She looked at me and said, "Or maybe you're just here more lately." She was probably right. None of these moments felt dramatic. But together, they added something back into my days. A kind of lightness, like finding pieces of yourself you hadn't realized you'd misplaced. There was even one morning when I laughed out loud. Just me, alone in the kitchen, remembering something silly my grandson said last Christmas. It surprised me, that laugh. It came out easy, like it had been waiting. 15 minutes a day didn't bring back my youth or erase my worries, but it opened the door for small joys to return. Not because I chased them, but because, for the first time in a while, I'd made space for them to come back. One of the first things I noticed wasn't in my mind, it was in my body. I bent down to pick up a sock near the washer, and for once, my lower back didn't groan the way it usually does. Not gone, but gentler. I stood there, a little surprised. I even said out loud, "Huh." I didn't make any big lifestyle changes. I wasn't exercising more or stretching daily. But somehow, those quiet 15 minutes had become the one time in the day when my body wasn't bracing for the next demand. Helen noticed it first. "You've been walking a little taller lately," she said during one of our grocery runs. I laughed. "I think I'm just less hunched from stress." She looked at me and said, "Don't underestimate what that can do." She's right. I hadn't realized how much tension I carried, shoulders lifted, jaw tight, hands always slightly clenched. And slowly, without me even trying, those things began to soften. One afternoon, I slipped on my cardigan and paused. My arms moved more freely. No pulling, no stiffness, just ease. It wasn't magic. Aging hasn't gone anywhere, but it felt like my body was no longer fighting me at every turn. I think sometimes we forget that the body keeps score, not just of what we do, but of how we live. And when I started giving myself even a little room to slow down, my body noticed. It remembered how to let go. I still have aches. Still have mornings when my knees are stiff and I mutter under my breath. But now, I meet those moments with a bit more patience, because I've learned that my body, just like my mind, responds better to kindness than pressure. And in a quiet way, it's been thanking me, not with grand changes, but with tiny mercies. A deeper breath, a looser grip, a softer step across the floor. 15 minutes of doing nothing helped my body remember something I hadn't given it in years. A chance to simply be. It wasn't something I ever planned to pass on. I wasn't trying to start a movement or change anyone's habits. I just kept sitting for those 15 quiet minutes each day and letting that be enough. Then one evening, my daughter came by with the kids. I had just finished my little pause, mug still warm on the table. She noticed it and said, "You've been quieter lately, in a good way." I smiled, just giving myself 15 minutes a day to stop trying so hard. She raised an eyebrow. "To do what?" "To not do anything," I said. And oddly, that's been the best part. She didn't say much after that, but a few days later, she called and said, "I tried it. Just 10 minutes while the boys were napping." It felt strange, but also really, really good. I could hear something softer in her voice, like she'd just taken a breath she didn't know she needed. That's when I realized this little practice of mine wasn't just about me. It had started to ripple outward. Helen told me she set a timer one morning just to see what it would feel like. June said she now lets herself have coffee by the window before turning on the TV. None of them called it a routine. None of us really talked about it like advice, but quietly, gently, the idea was taking root. I think when something makes your life feel a little lighter, it finds its way into the lives of others without you needing to push it. I never set out to teach anything. I simply lived it. And somehow that was enough. 15 minutes, one quiet act of permission. And now, in small pockets of time, in homes that don't look much like mine, other women are sitting, breathing, and remembering they matter too. Somewhere along the way, time began to feel different. I didn't notice it at first. It crept in quietly, like the way evening light slowly softens a room without asking for attention. 15 minutes a day didn't change how busy life can be, but it changed the texture of the hours around it. The days didn't feel as rushed, not because there was less to do, but because I wasn't chasing the clock so much. I started noticing things again, noticing them while they were happening, not just when looking back. The smell of toast, the rhythm of the washing machine, the feel of warm socks pulled fresh from the dryer. Before, those things would happen in the background. Now, they lingered just long enough to be felt. I remember telling Helen, "I think I've stretched time." She laughed. "You mean you've stretched yourself back into it?" She was right. For so long, time was something to beat or catch up with or fill. But now, in those quiet minutes, time wasn't my opponent. It was a sea. It reminded me that there's a difference between being busy and being full, between movement and meaning, and that slowing down isn't always about doing less. Sometimes it's about being more there for what's already happening. I don't know when exactly the shift occurred. Maybe it was the day I forgot to check the clock during my pause, or maybe it was when I started waking up without a sense of dread for the day ahead. But I do know this: the more I honored those small 15 minutes, the more the rest of my time felt like it belonged to me again. And after years of rushing, that might be the most surprising gift of all. 15 minutes. That's all it ever was. Not a program, not a solution, just a gentle return to myself, one day at a time. And somehow, through that simple act, I began to live more slowly, more presently, not because everything changed around me, but because something softened within me. There are still busy days, still distractions and deadlines and dishes, but now I know I can press pause, not to escape life, but to step more fully into it. If any part of this story felt familiar to you, go ahead and like or share this video. It helps us keep creating content that speaks to real, quiet transformations like yours. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Comment yes if you've tried something similar, or maybe if you're thinking about it now. Your presence here matters more than you know. Take your time, even if it's just 15 minutes. You're allowed.